Alright, so let's get started. So yeah, we mentioned a little bit last time, obviously putting together this photo montage. Now don't get me wrong, I've already gone over a lot of the exact same tools you could use to, of course, hybridize this drawing. However, some of the stuff, refinement is definitely an issue, right? You know, some of the stuff that comes up, especially when we scan, and of course we don't want some of those weird anomalies, you know, the smudge marks on the lens kind of thing. We don't want that stuff. So of course we need to refine some of the drawings so that we can put them together in a more abstract way, right? So of course this sets out to give you some ideas, and again, the technicality of doing that. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and make a new file and make an 11 by 17 at 300. Because that's just kind of my thing. I guess you could open the image too and go from there, but I like to start fresh. Go ahead and place embedded, and I'm going to get my scans that we just scanned. So I need to find my USB. In my case, I think it's called No Name. Really wish I could just open all three, but that's okay. Well, let's get our elements there. There's that first one. Guess we can just drag and drop them in too. Let's just do that. Where's my finder? Oh my gosh, I have two Photoshop open. Anyway, where am I at? Start over. Thank goodness for computers. File, new, 11 by 17. There we go. I don't have two of them running though, right? Why does it do that? They're everywhere. Anyway, not sure why it's doing that actually. That's a new thing for me. I don't know, maybe it happens to do with the recording? I don't know. Anyway, I won't let it bother me. Let's get those files. And just drag and drop them in. Time is money. So of course we'll have to hit enter on each of those. And we're good. Right, so first things first, I may need to realize that, well, even what I scanned here could still be further refined, and so on and so forth. Obviously, the yellow papers, well, let's just test it out. Let's see what happens if we try, let's say, blending options to it. Or, you know, it's in the wrong direction at first. So, first of all, I'm going to use Command T or Control T, transform, and rotate it, right? Get it kind of generally more or less in the right spot. Now, I really just want the red lines, you know, I don't necessarily need this white part. However, if I try and do blending options, you know, I only know that it removes white, so let's see what it does to yellow. Multiply. It gets rid of quite a bit, right, to say the least. Let's take a look. Right, not too bad. Alright, so blending options definitely worked in this case. However, at least it didn't get that line. You can't really see it on the projector. You'll see it in the recording though. It missed some things, right? So I might still have to go back and of course erase some of the stuff, right? It may go, hey, this isn't a smart object yet, so it might want to be converted to a smart object. It said, well, you still don't have it rastered. That's okay too. But yeah, we can further refine this, and we can even get rid of some of the stuff that maybe we do or don't need, right? Another aspect about this is, well, we can start to fill in maybe some of the stuff that we do need. Sorry, why is it not letting me move this? Oh my gosh, let me select here. Yeah, so another problem is you have to select the exact line. You can't select the space of that any longer. So, but yeah, let's test it. Let's take a look at it. Let's put this one on top. Looks like we got some people bringing back chairs. So yeah, I'm going to get that as close as possible as well. But as you can see, I mean, especially on the projector, it's getting hard to kind of see those lines together, right? So I don't know, what could I do? What could I do to make these lines maybe pop out a little bit more? Maybe it was the color red. Maybe I need to change the color red. Maybe white would be better. So let's test a few things. So Another way that, of course, if blending options doesn't work, so I do want to give you some options just in case that blending options didn't work. We can also use curves, so that's Command M as in mom, and of course it'll bring up curves. Or if you go to Image, Adjustments, and Curves. All right, this is actually one of my favorite spots, is obviously Image and Adjustments. Pretty much everything I do is just about right here. But let's test some things. It is, after all, a hybrid, and well, my professor said it didn't have to stay analog. In fact, it can. I have to print this out, so it can't literally stay analog. So let's try some things. First, let's try curves. Now, I have a couple of tools in curves. I can do an automatic and see what that does. Well, that didn't remove the white, so that didn't work. I can click on this black eyedropper tool, and if I click somewhere, see what it does. Nothing. And it might be because I have something selected. So let's test that. I'm going to do Command D, so to deselect, just in case I did have anything selected. Let's try that again. I'm going to go to Curves. Black eyedropper tool. Doesn't seem to be doing much. Oh, and it's because it's not a smart object. So, I mean, one of those things too is, well, if you notice just nothing happening, probably a better chance to rasterize and smart up the layer, right? Now let's try it out. There we go. Obviously not removing the white. Let's try that again. Command M. Let's try my white eyedropper tool, because it's going to make everything that I click on white. So again, another good way. Now, that didn't remove the white though. That just turned it a different color. So do keep that in mind. However, now I could use blending options, and it might actually work a little bit better, just in case I was running into an issue where I noticed the blending options wasn't working so well. I may have to actually apply curves to it first, then apply that. Now, don't get me wrong, there might be some information that I want to keep white. You know, for instance, especially on this one, I kind of like this area of the sun. Remember, we talked about everywhere in this area of the diagram actually shows the true locations of the sun. So I might want to keep that information. So I'm actually going to select it first, and I'm going to get fancy with the spices. I'm going to try just a regular lasso tool and just kind of trace it out. Right? I want to keep this white, so obviously this isn't the best tool in the world. Very shaky. However, it may make sense just because, well, this is a shaky line drawing, so I don't know, maybe I want my digital to kind of match or represent that. Well, maybe not that badly. However, let's say I mess up. I can hold Shift, and that'll add a little plus sign. But if I hold Option or Alt on Windows, it'll actually make a minus sign. Do you guys see that? So what's cool is like, man, do I have to trace all that again? Nah, not at all. Right? I can hold the Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and actually remove from that selection. So maybe I obviously don't need that little mess up part, and of course it'll remove. I can do that again. Say I didn't get it all the way, I can go back and forth, get it a little bit better, I get that a little bit more clear, and so on. Right? So I can still refine some of this stuff. But I do want to keep that, so I want to apply everything outside of it. So I'm going to right click and select inverse. So it's going to select everything but that now. And I can either erase, right, well, let's face it, I could erase and just get rid of everything altogether. Oh no, but I want the buildings maybe. Right, because clearly it's getting rid of more information than I wanted it to. It's also getting rid of the wrong layer, right? So I need to make sure that I'm even on the right layer, but what's nice is the select or deselect isn't layer bound. It's sort of, if you want to, you can imagine it's its own layer, right? It's not bound by anything. In fact, if I turn everything off, the selection is still there, right? So it's not bound by anything, but it is bound to what layer that I select that it happens to. So do be cognizant of that. However, yeah, I may want to get rid of some of that information inside there. I think I already did, so let's actually change my blending options just to kind of make that a little bit more apparent. So we'll change this back to normal. That way there's technically still white there, but when I erase it, it's going to say, oh, it needs to be a smart object, oh, it needs to be rasterized. That's fine. And it's of course going to get rid of everything outside of it. Now that might not be what I want, so let's try something else. Let's get rid of all the white, but only in that location. I'm going to turn my layer, my blending layers back on. Usually I just double click. Oh, there it goes. We'll switch it back to multiply, just kind of see what happens. However, I'm not sure. I guess maybe blending options applies to the entire layer instead of actually our selection. That's unfortunate because it used to not be that way. Very useful tool gone, but oh well, not extremely important. I could show a different way. Let's do this instead. Maybe I want to color it myself digitally. So I'm going to select that inverse again. I do want that selection now. I'm going to go to the layer that I want it on. So I want it on my sun layer. And I don't know, brush tool is B, so I'm going to hit the letter B. I want it to be pretty unfuzzy, or sorry, pretty fuzzy. I also don't want to do a lot of work, so I'm going to use a bigger aperture or a different, bigger brush, more pixels. And, you know, as I was mentioning, I kind of want that yellowness, that bright yellow over here. And I don't want to be too perfect. After all, the computer often makes things look too perfect anyway. Maybe a little bit of yellow there. A little bit of orange. Maybe it's a little hotter over here. Maybe too much. Thank goodness. There's a back button. There's the summer heat right there. So I don't know, maybe it's just kind of this area. It's looking pretty good. Maybe I need that color again. So I'll get that color again using the eyedropper tool or the letter I. Go back to B for brush. Let me brush that back in. That's looking pretty cool. However, let's take its transparency down. I guess I should have brushed it transparent, or even put it actually on its own layer. Actually, let's do that. We'll give it its own layer. That way we can control it a little bit more. Not a big deal. Got a back button. Make a new layer. I'll call it Paint on Climate. So maybe it's the sun. Let's get the yellow in there. Just gonna try and kind of draw it in, make sure that it's on that layer. Right, that way I can control it a little bit better. Go back to the orange, maybe a darker reddish color. I could also change the transparency of what I brush. So there's that kind of option too. But yeah, you might realize, well, dang, I accidentally got rid of a lot of stuff that I didn't want to get rid of. So I might need to take that layer and of course bring it back. And maybe even put that layer underneath my lines. So what's really nice is, well, now if we take a closer look, the lines are actually on top of that yellow color. But what's nice is it neither looks digital or hand drawn. It almost, you couldn't tell. Now unfortunately the projector is just awful at giving you the color yellow apparently, because it looks way different in my screen. And that's actually, it's looking pretty nice on mine. So hopefully for the recording, that will do you a little bit more justice. However, as you guys know, we can align things also in this program. So let's align it back up to our page. And yeah, now we're actually getting somewhere. It's showing up a little bit more. I can definitely see the sun on this diagram now. However, I might actually have to change the image a little bit to get somewhere. Right? Obviously this needs to go at the bottom layer. Otherwise we can't see it, and we still can't see it. So definitely need to change maybe some blending options. Oh, double click. Multiply. Take that white out a little bit. Right, that way of course we can see through the objects. And then of course align this up. Since we scanned it, it should be at least accurate to what I drew. start to show just how bad you are of a drawer, but I did okay today, I think. But yeah, we could really start to line those up. However, it looks like I may have missed the mark on my buildings, right? Or maybe it's actually the wrong size. I think I just missed the mark on the building, but well, either way, we don't have to stick with bad drawings, of course. Take that layer and fix it. I could use my arrows, dial it in just right. I can even hold shift on those arrows and move it even faster. Yeah, we're looking closer. But yeah, I'd want to dial it in, right? Even if I have to fake it a little bit. I can sort of unhold shift to maybe match my proportions. That's a little bit more advanced. I won't do that to you. I would say hold shift and you can, it's kind of the safer bet, but anyway, we'll get it close. But yeah, we still might be able to see this image so well, so I could even take this one back significantly. Now our information becomes a little bit more apparent. What's interesting is we have a completely new aspect, right? We also have the ability to go, oh man, you know what? I messed up on this layer. Or sorry, I messed up on that layer. You know, I didn't mean to actually trace that building. So I can even further, of course, go back and erase some of that information that maybe I don't need. Obviously, you got to choose the right layer. Oh, still didn't choose the right layer. There we go. Right, but of course we can change things, right? So again, I want you to get used to these tools because I can't tell you how many times that, you know, even I give my clients a lot of hand drawings, but I don't give them the original, right? I scan it, I refine it, I fix some of the things that I messed up, and it's also helped me draw a little bit better and feel not so self-conscious about it, realizing that just because I made a mistake doesn't mean I have to start over. I can scan it, I can erase it, right? And to be cognizant of some of those things I can do can actually save me time, right? Because again, that wastes a lot of time. Every time I'm drawing this thing, I throw it out because I messed up maybe a little bit. So, actually that's quite helpful for drafting as well. How many of you guys make mistakes while you're drafting? Now, don't get me wrong, we can erase, but keep in mind that the technology is out there too, that you're going to be pushed as architects to mend this situation of analog and digital together. Now, some schools have said, nah, forget analog, we're just sticking with digital. However, I don't think that's right. I do think it's a missed opportunity that we can actually blend these together and make new things, right? Anyway, I'll leave it like that for today. Obviously, you can use these skills of refinement towards the drawings and the skills from the photo montage to of course make this new hybrid situation. Sound fair? And again, not looking so much at how accurate it is or if you found all the topography lines or you know, quantity versus quality. Definitely looking for quality and expression of communication. So, any questions, comments, concerns? Maybe something that you would like to know how to do in Photoshop that maybe I haven't covered?
You want all 4 overlays on one thing?
Correct. Yeah, so that you'll want to separate them into their own layers.
Yep.
Absolutely. What if I don't like the color red? What if I wanted black? Now, obviously, in the projector, it actually looks black. But just in case, maybe you're like, man, I haven't, you know, Professor didn't show me that I can just change a color, right? So even if I only had a red pen, right, I could be like, man, my client is a bull and he hates the color red, so I really need to change that color red. So let's find that layer. Perfect, there it is. I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, all the way at the bottom. Replace color. So what's pretty interesting is I can select the color, or the range of colors I should say. You'll see it change to the color red. I can apply fuzziness, which basically means the threshold of how much the computer should collect. That is close to the color red. So obviously I don't want it to get that black background. Obviously once that black background starts turning white, you're getting too much. right? So I'm gonna get it as contrasty as possible. And then let's say, I don't know, let's just change it to black, right? As you can see, it gets some of it, maybe not all of it. Of course, I can change the lightness and the darkness. And of course, I can still change the amount of fuzz. Well, so if I take more, it's gonna, of course, change the color drastically more, versus if I take less, of course, it'll change significantly less. What's nice is I can still continue to click on that color red and further, change that aspect of its fuzziness. Very often I would say select the light color red. It's going to give you some better results. But again, you can always change the fuzziness. But yeah, instead of red lines now, at least for that layer, we have black lines. So again, gosh, I can't tell you how many times I was like, I threw away some idea because I was like, man, I did the whole thing in red. Why did I do that? I know my professor's not going to accept this in red. And I could have just photoshopped it or printed it black and white, for gosh sakes, Anyway, hopefully these tools are helpful, guys. Obviously, as you position yourself or make this transition between analog and digital, obviously we don't want to just kind of show what we scan. We want to make it better, or even fix some mistakes, or even add color. So that's an option too, and transparency. Anyway, I'll leave it at that if there's no other questions, and get this one uploaded as soon as possible with, my gosh, 1 minute to spare. Sweet.